Hi guys, welcome back to Gryphon Studio. My name's Alan. This week I've been making a little bit of a puzzle piece kind of thing for various encounters. It works off of kind of what do you call it? Cryptex. Cryptex. It's called a cryptex. It works off of kind of a cryptex idea, and essentially it's movable stone discs that will line up with symbols or lettering or something on them. Maybe you could add it to some sort of games with clues or foreshadowing of some description, and you could have some cool, interesting encounters. And essentially, it looks like this. It's got lettering all the way around it, and it's all rotational, and it can be moved and changed into different ways, and the letters can all be lined up and whatnot. So yeah, it's pretty cool and pretty useful, so let's get making it. So this week I set myself a challenge of creating something out of, well, very little really, just kind of waste materials and scraps of XPS form left over, and just odd things that I can find around the workshop, things that I don't have to buy anything for. That, you know, I figured I should probably use these waste materials rather than just throwing them in the bin. You know, we should all be trying to recycle things a bit more. So I just, as per usual, I sat in my workshop and I just kind of filmed myself making something. I didn't know what it was going to be yet, but then it quickly dawned on me that I could make something of a puzzle piece, maybe for dungeons and players to figure out and maybe have a bit of fun with. So I just set about making this kind of pillar of discs that could be twisted round and altered, and hopefully create something interesting with them. And after running the XPS form through the Proxon on my circle jig, I had these 5 discs of XPS, which I figured I should make look like stone, but I wanted a way to fix them together but in a modular way. So the way I was going to do that was with some magnets. Now the hole, for some reason, isn't directly through the middle, so I'm going to punch a hole through the middle again. I'm going to use a drawing pin as the connector for the magnets, so I just need to trim those down to stop the points. Oh, don't know where that went, but safety glasses. And I'm just going to use these drawing pins as a little connector point for the magnets to affix to. And I pressed these into the foam really quite hard so that they were nice and flush with the foam and they weren't going to protrude in any way. And then I decided that it'd be best to secure them in with a little bit of hot glue, just to make sure that the magnets don't pull them out. Now the magnet's going to go on the other side of the foam, so I'm just going to use the blunt end of a paintbrush just to make a little dent, and then a little bit of hot glue. And I have these neodymium magnets lying around. They're pretty cheap. These are only 6mm magnets, I think. And you know, they're really useful for a lot of different projects, especially if you like modular sort of terrain, and they come in really handy when you want to chop and change different bits of terrain to match other pieces of terrain. So here I have all these discs. They've got magnets in one side and a drawing pin in the other. They're going to get a little bit of texture now from a aluminium ball, just to match up with the rest of the stone textures that I use in other dungeon pieces of terrain. And then I also made this little stone base here, which actually snapped in half, but I figured, you know, that adds to the aesthetic. Why not? You know, just have a big crack in the stonework. I mean, why not? You know, it saves me making another piece, and I think it looks pretty good anyway. This stone base here needs another drawing pin so that the magnets on the discs can stick to it. And now you have 5 discs of rotating stone that could have all kinds of symbols or lettering, numbers or whatever on them, and they can be changed for different orders and things, or you can just take, you know, a few off the top and have a 3-letter word or a 4-letter word, or you can make more and make it a 6 or 7-letter word. So now it just comes to the point where you've got to kind of etch in some symbols or letters or whatever you want on the side, and I'm just going to go with letters because that way I can create words that maybe are passwords or something that players could use, that maybe they get clued in with some other feature that helps them figure out what the word's supposed to be. Otherwise it could just be a kind of a trial and error type situation where you just got to continuously spin these discs until they make words. So I'm just going to cut these little letters out with an X-Acto blade and then just make them a little bit deeper and a little bit more defined with a cocktail stick. Next up is the undercoat stage, so I'm going to use some black paint and Mod Podge just brushed on. Obviously you can't use spray paint for this because it would attack the foam quite violently and cause, you know, a lot of unwanted texturing and melting and whatnot. So just brushing it on is the best way to do this. The Mod Podge isn't necessary all the time, I guess, in this situation because I'm not going to be adding any glue or any spray paint to this. But it is going to help protect the foam from, you know, general manhandling during games and whatnot. This is obviously a very modular piece, and it's going to be maybe picked up and kind of played with a little bit more often than normal pieces of terrain might do. I'll let that dry overnight, and then I'm just going to dry brush it with some medium grey. Quite a heavy dry brush. I want this to cover pretty much the entire piece, but I want you to see here just how the lettering picks up with a good dry brush on the outside. You could of course add more letters to this, like I only added 4 to each of these discs, so you could add 6 or maybe more if the discs are big enough and there's enough space between them. And then I found this old 3D printed model here. This is of this kind of dynamically posed barbarian guy, and he's pretty cool looking, but he was a bit small for a model, so I used him as a statue. Just going to paint him up in a nice bronze colour, and then I'm going to add a little bit of corrosion to this. I always like doing bronze statues because, one, bronze is quite a common statue material along with stone. But it's a little bit fancier than stone, and it's good for corroding and adding sort of weathering effects using this nitrile oxide from Citadel range. And the way to use this is just to kind of smear it on in like big quantities like this and just get it in all those little nooks and crannies, and then kind of wipe off the excess with like an old t-shirt or an old cloth of some sort, and then that'll leave behind this kind of this weathered effect, and I think it looks really cool afterwards. The stone discs are going to get the usual treatment of a black-brown wash. I'm going to stipple this on so as not to reactivate the dry paint underneath. You can only do this step when the paint is very, very dry. Like, it has to be completely bone dry before you start adding the wash, otherwise you get this kind of cloudy effect, and that's not what you're after. I then added this little piece here. I just cut this out. I wanted like a cardinal direction compass style disc that I could add to this piece, just to add a bit of interest to it, and maybe you could use it as an interesting puzzle piece. So I took some epoxy resin. I got a little bit carried away at this point, took some epoxy resin and added some gold paint to it, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to pour this into the recess here, almost like they've sort of cast this gold star in the middle of this compass slab kind of thing, and I think it started to look pretty cool. Just an interesting way of adding a bit of difference to some of these like pieces. I think I'm going to try a little bit more of this this method where I cut out some interesting shapes and then fill them with epoxy in an attempt to kind of make them look like they've been cast in this interesting pattern. And then all that remains is to add a few bits of moss and maybe candles or something, like skulls or whatever. If you've got anything like that lying around, you can always add them and make them look a little bit more fancy. And there you have it, a nice little rotational compass dial. I'm sure you could make an interesting puzzle piece out of that. Or you have the barbarian, and maybe he has to be turned a certain way, facing a certain direction. In which case, you could of course just add the compass directions piece to the base as well, and you have an interesting, puzzle piece here where maybe the guy has to be facing a certain way, or the wind has to be blowing a certain way. And then here you've got all kinds of different lettering added to these discs. You can of course add more and make a few more. I only made 5 here, and that's probably enough to make quite a lot of different words. You can stack them up however you like. There you go, guys, I've pretty much finished there. It's quite a nice relaxing video, this one. I really just wanted to sit down and make something out of the scraps that I had left over. That's often the way that I do a lot of crafting. I just sort of sit down at my desk there and just put things together, and eventually something comes out and it maybe triggers something in me to create something very specific, and then I go with it from there. And that's really all that happened here. I want to make something that was modular. That's pretty much all I had in mind. And then I decided that something like a puzzle piece would be interesting, and then I went from there really and just created this kind of cryptex style stone word puzzle essentially. But you can use anything you want. You can use symbols and numbers and all sorts of different things. And of course, obviously I've used a 3D printed model there, but any model that you've got lying around that you maybe not going to use, something that's kind of dynamic would be good. Something that was maybe pointing, or with a weapon of some description, or looking a certain way, or maybe the cloak is kind of blowing in the wind. Something with a lot going on that maybe you could refer to in terms of like clues or whatever in games. So yeah, that's really useful. So I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. If you did enjoy this video, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe below. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps the channel, and it really helps me get my videos out there to a wider audience, and it ensures that you definitely see them when I post new ones. So yeah, that's it. I do have an Instagram account set up. If you want to check me out and follow me on there, please feel free to do that. I think I might be doing a giveaway or something, like a giveaway box soon, in which case I'll throw a post on Instagram and then you can all kind of interact with that. That'll be for 1,000 followers kind of thing on Instagram, so that'll be really cool, and it'll give me the chance to help someone new in the hobby, someone who wants to maybe get a few different kinds of materials together that maybe they can't afford them, or maybe they don't want to go out and buy them in bulk and they just want small amounts, and they'll all be free anyway, and I'll send them right to your door. So yeah, hopefully I can help someone out in the community to help them get started, providing them with a few beginner materials that to help make some of their own terrain. And I would like to say thank you to the honorary Gryphons there as well on Patreon. If you'd like to follow me on Patreon, please feel free to sign up. These guys, you guys are the best. I couldn't ask for more. Like you guys, just they're keeping me going here, and I really appreciate all of your all of your support and all of your financial support too. It is only $1 to sign up. If you want to sign up, it helps fund the channel, and it helps me continue to create videos for you guys. That's it for this one though. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much for stopping by, and happy crafting.